for the Workforce Solutions Roundtable. This is our second Solutions Roundtable. We did a Housing Solutions Roundtable last week. One moment, my dogs always decide to play right when I start talking on one of these things. So I'm going to close my door. Excuse me. I should remember that. They like to do that. So yes, we had a Housing Solutions Roundtable last year. If that's of interest to you and you weren't able to join us, all of that recording, PowerPoints, resource guides are on the WeCan website at communityreview.org. And WeCan is an acronym for the Western Community Assessment Network. And we formed around 2018. And our focus then was community reviews, the programs that we had in Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, delivered by Montana Economic Developers Association, Wyoming Business Council, and Idaho Rural Partnership. And we came together to learn from each other and work on improving those community reviews to be more effective for communities. And it's still kind of a work in progress, but we are pretty proud of the process that we ended up with, and communities are seeing some incredible impacts. And all of these things, they're all on the website, communityreview.org. So if you want to know more, go there. The Peer Learning Network is something, oh, sorry, go back for a sec. The Peer Learning Network is something we started in 2020, bringing together leaders from around those 3 states to meet with each other and talk about issues that are coming up. And it's actually out of the Peer Learning Network that these solutions roundtables were born. It was an idea that the peer leaders had, and they really wanted us to focus on solutions. They are tired of just hearing about the problem and how bad things are related to these issues all the time. So so that's why we focus on solutions. Last year, earlier this year, we started the Community Boot Camp, which is a program that helps community teams develop project ideas and implement those. We're going to do another boot camp this spring. So if you think that would be of interest to your community, please check back to the website. We have done just a lot of research as part of this project, ripple effects mapping. We have done surveys in every community that has done a community review in the 3 states since 2018. So we're learning a lot about what's going on in rural communities, and we think how better to assist them. And then the resources for rural communities. We have a resource database on our website, covers a myriad of topics. So, and we're always adding new resources to that. So if you're looking for information about something particular, you might think about checking out our database. Okay, Michelle. So for the Workforce Solutions Roundtable, Marcy, Elizabeth, and Michelle are the WeCan staff that took point on pulling this together. And I want to thank Eric Kingston, Lisa Kunkel, Deanna Werner, and Juliet Daniels, who joined the team, the committee, to help us design this Solutions Roundtable. So thank you all. Okay, as we get started, we'd like to know who all is here. So what I'd like you to do is open the chat, and type your name, your community organization, and one question about workforce that's on your mind, but don't hit send until I say the word. We're all going to hit send at the same time. So I'm going to give you a minute to type your answers into the chat, and then I'll tell you when to hit send. And if you want to put your camera on for just a minute, we just went to gallery view so we could kind of see who all is in the room and start to put faces to names. Okay, go ahead and hit enter. Thank you. That's great. Well, thank you. Welcome, everybody. So glad you're able to join us. We'll talk just a minute about the agenda for today and what we've got in store for you. So as part of the planning for this, we decided to do a survey of employees and employers. And Michelle is going to talk about those. And then we're delighted to have Deb Brown from Save Your Town with us today to talk about what she and Becky McCray, who is her partner in Save Your Town, have learned about workforce solutions. We're going to have lots of time today for you all to get together and talk about what's going on in your community and ask questions and share stories. Then we have 7 presenters from communities around the 3 states that will talk about workforce solutions they've implemented in their communities. We'll have an opportunity, a little lengthier breakout time to dig deeper into the different topics that the speakers are going to touch on today. And then we'll have a closing plenary session and wrap up. So again, welcome and thank you all for joining us.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Archie. I'm going to talk just really briefly about some of the highlights from the employee and employer survey findings. We will put more complete findings in a resource guide that we'll share after the roundtable gets over, although not today, sometime in the next week or so. So we had 138 people respond to the employer survey, and these are all folks from rural communities, almost all of them in Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. And 104 people took the employee survey. We just put out the word to all of our network through the peer learning network, and and just ask people to encourage folks that they knew. So this is sort of a starting kind of sample, just to take a look at what's on the minds of employers and employees across our 3 states. So one thing to know about the employers is that almost all of them are in organizations or businesses that employ fewer than 20 people. So I'm just going to dive into a few really quick highlights. So first, on the employer's side of things, one of the questions we asked them was what their top challenges are when it comes to workforce. And the #1 challenge was finding people to apply for jobs, followed pretty closely by affordable housing for employees, finding qualified people, meeting expectations for pay, and then finding people who are well trained. But it is, so that's, a lot of that is really about hiring people, but also coming up in employers' comments were concerns about training and especially retaining workers, especially seasonal workers, how to deal with that sort of cycle of seasonality, and also reconfiguring work to meet how employers are hearing that people want to engage in work, either part-time or with flexible schedules and remote work. And the thing that they most wanted to know from any professional development opportunities was how to manage younger workers. So it feels to me, just by looking at the responses at this level, that employers are really feeling like a lot is changing in the workforce, and they're not really sure how to respond to that. They're also feeling the pinch of rising prices for supplies and materials. So we asked them, outside of workforce, what are some of the other challenges you're facing? And the top was just prices for the things that we need to run our business. Also, getting them delivered is a big concern for a lot of employers. And then the response rate dropped off quite a bit, looking for adequate training, opportunities for safety or technical knowledge, and then a whole basket of other concerns. Switching over to the employee side, and I'll just say this is such a skimming the surface of what we learned, but it sort of helps to set the context for today. What are employers concerned about? And then you can dive into the longer, more detailed findings when we put out the resource guide. So most of the employees who responded are employed, not semi-retired or looking for work, but they're employed and they hold only one job. About 17% of respondents responded that they hold 2 jobs, 3 jobs, or more than that. The employees work for a mix of government, private companies was the most prevalent response, nonprofits, and then a few others, people who are self-employed mostly. About 2/3 of them work full-time, and about 23% work part-time. And then there were a handful of others who are temporary workers, contract workers who are on, or those who are on call. We asked employees what they like most about their current jobs, and the number 1 answer was the hours and shifts available. Number 2 answer was paid vacation, and then a bunch of answers tied for number 3, ranging from health insurance to paid sick leave to professional development opportunities, and then flexible hours, their ability to work from home or to have flexible hours, and access to caregiving services for children, for elders, for others who need care in their lives. We asked people what would improve, what would they do to improve their current job, and maybe not surprisingly, the number 1 response was to improve pay. The second response is very interesting. It went from improved pay to more support from leadership in their jobs. The third response was improved benefits. The fourth was less stress. And the fifth was more opportunities for advancement. So I thought that was interesting that employees are looking for kind of a range of values in their work. And also, when you see the full results, you'll see we ask them what they value most about their jobs. And there are a lot of answers in there that have to do with how they interact with the other people that they work with. We asked if they were looking for or open to looking for another job. So 44% said no, they're not looking for other work, and 56% either actively looking or they would be willing under the right circumstances to change jobs. We probed into what the right circumstances might be, but the number 1 thing that they were looking for in a job or their current job, when we ask them what would help you work to your full capacity, ability, and desire, the number one thing correlated with what people would improve about their job, so better pay. Number two was more employment opportunities in my community, which I thought was sort of interesting because employers are saying that they can't find employees, and employees are saying they want more opportunity to work where they are in their rural communities. So there's sort of a mismatch between, there's a little bit of a mismatch actually between what employers seem to be picking up in the labor market and what employees are saying. Flexible hours, this is a value that people hold about their own jobs but wanted more of. Better healthcare coverage for small business owners, and then none of the above. I'm already working to my full capacity, ability, and desire. So we're going to dive in a lot more detail in the resource guide, but I hope that this gives you a little bit of a sense of what we're hearing from out there in the field. Back to you, Lori.
You're on mute, Lori.
I'd like to introduce Deb Brown. She comes to us from Iowa, born in Geneva, currently in Webster City, for those of you who also have Iowa roots. Deb is and I think you'll find this, a relentless optimist who knows how to build possibility in small towns. Together, she and Becky McCray from Oklahoma created Savior Town. Go to the next slide. Savior Town, and if you didn't have a chance to watch their video on the idea-friendly method, I encourage you to do that. It's one of the coolest things in rural community development ever. And so I'm encourage you to do that, and also to check out the other videos and resources they have on their website. They're just fabulous. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Deb. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you very much. All the technical stuff. Here we go. So today we're talking about one of the most complex rural challenges, our workforce. A workforce consistently is one of the top 5 on our survey of rural challenges. And there are a lot of different factors that contribute to that ongoing workforce shortage. Rural areas have a tighter labor supply because we're rural. Our total population is smaller, with older people, more disability, more addiction, lower education rates, and lower rates of participation in the workforce than in our more friendly urban areas, our neighbors. And of course, rural employers struggle to fill job openings. I'll get the hang of this yet, sorry. Given how big of a mess this still is, the ways we have been trying to solve workforce issues haven't been working or not working well enough. And we've all seen companies struggling with workforce challenges for decades now. Right now, and potentially for a long time, there's another complication with the impact of COVID in our workforce. More women and older workers left the workforce, more people work remotely, a mental health crisis is brewing in the workplace, and young people are entering the workforce with a different communication style from years of remote schooling and work. Now, there are good ideas out there, things that can help address the workforce challenges and improve your local community. We have collected a lot of ideas from our travels to small towns, our survey of rural challenges, and listening to rural people just like you. Too often, when we suggest one of these ideas to a struggling employer, they respond with limited beliefs like, we post jobs, but no one applies. The few who do apply just aren't qualified, or we can't afford to pay better. And several more we're going to talk about today. Because workforce issues have been a problem for so long, it's easy to see how some people have developed these limiting beliefs over time. But remember, things are changing. By the end of this presentation, you will see that many of the old limits don't have to be limits anymore. While I'm showing you our proprietary idea-friendly method, I'm also going to help you overcome the first limit, which is trying to do a giant project. Because their workforce challenges are so big, local leaders often try to solve them with huge, big projects with lots of partners that take years to do and require enormous amounts of money, like building a large new technical training center or starting a new education to career pathway. Now, those are undeniably good things when they work, but they're so big, you can't really complete very many of them. Your new mindset, what no one tells you is that you can build your way up to one of those huge projects by starting with small steps. When you take small steps in an idea-friendly way, it brings you the people, the connections, and the action steps that help you make progress. So let's walk through how to apply the idea-friendly method to your workforce issues. The first part is to gather your crowd. You want to attract people who also care about the issue. When economic development leaders in Brenham, Texas, talk to their existing businesses, they learn that their best people are skilled and loyal workers, but they just don't have enough of those best people to meet the needs of all the businesses. The economic developers realized they couldn't solve such a large problem on their own. They had to reach out to other organizations, educators, and businesses. They started sharing their story in just one sentence. Our workforce is our best asset and our greatest weakness. And that story drew lots of people to them. They were gathering their crowd. They called their crowd the Workforce Maximization Group. It's a mouthful, right? But they started taking small steps right away with their crowd. So the next part of the idea-friendly method is to build connections. Now you've started gathering people to your area, and they're not automatically going to know how to help. You know how these conversations go. When Becky visited Colfax, Washington, an economic developer and a chamber leader told her how they wanted to increase the supply of childcare for their workforce. They had talked to the school superintendent about this, and the superintendent nodded and looked excited. And then he said, "Well, I hope you can do it." And then he didn't do anything to help. Becky suggested that our host use these two questions to move people like that superintendent into taking immediate action. So you want to ask people first, who do you know who knows more about this? And second, do you have or know where to find this resource we need? Then the conversation does not end with, good luck with that. And people know exactly how they can help right away. The last part of the idea-friendly method is to take small steps. And this is where the real magic happens. Forget all the big stuff for a moment and just begin taking small steps, starting with just the first one. Jimmy Coplin and 4 other rural economic developers wanted to retain more of their young people to join the workforce in Texas. They knew this was a long-term issue and one that they couldn't solve overnight. They decided to start with one small step. They joined together to host an interactive booth at their regional career fair where the young people would be gathering. So rather than talk about what economic developers do as a career, they used interactive games and selfie frames to send a message to these kids that they're welcome to stay or return to rural Texas to work. Jimmy said, despite what they may think or are told, there really are good jobs in rural communities. That's a message kids need to hear over and over. And Jimmy and her fellow economic developers made sure it got delivered directly to this group of students in a fun and a way they'll remember. So now it's time to share some specific examples that show you how some of those old limiting beliefs don't have to limit you anymore. So you can start taking your own small steps. Here's the first limited belief, and it's one you'll recognize. We post job openings, but we don't get any applications. To overcome this old limiting belief, ask yourself, are you overlooking potential workers by expecting them to come to you? Well, the new mindset is to go out and look for people you could connect with instead of waiting for them to come to you with applications. For example, old limiting beliefs meant that girls got overlooked as potential workers in certain industries. Pat Long from Ponca City, Oklahoma, told us about their Girl Power Day Camp for middle school girls. It introduces girls to potential career paths in manufacturing industries and other jobs available in Ponca City right now. So women from the community work with these campers on basic skills needed. They take them on tours of local companies and they work with them on fun group projects. So you can see the new mindset at work here. Rather than waiting for girls to discover these industry jobs, the industry groups are reaching out to the girls starting in middle school. Another group that gets overlooked are those at-risk students. Tony Guidros from San Saba, Texas, told us he was shocked when he found out there were 702 kids in his local school district, and more than 400 were considered at risk, either because of grades or language barriers. Tony wanted to give them more chances, so he shared more choices, and chances. So he shared his idea for a blue collar career fair. He brought heavy equipment operators, an HVAC contractor, a stonemason, a plumber, an electrician, and a welder, all to one location for hands-on demonstrations. The kids could try their own hands at moving some dirt, burning some metal, or even just stripping some wire. Tony's hope is to grab the attention of some of these kids who haven't thought about these high-paying local jobs that really are in high demand, but don't require 4 years of college. So you see the new mindset at work here. Rather than employers letting grades or language barriers stop kids from applying, they're learning how to connect directly with them. So here's the next limiting belief, that workers aren't qualified. And you'll hear things like applicants don't have the skills we need. So to overcome this old limiting belief, ask yourself, am I expecting others to build my workforce for me? The new workforce mindset is to connect with community resources to help build the workforce you need. So if the trouble is with language barriers, find out who's teaching English classes already. And it might be schools, churches, or even your faith groups. In my town of Webster City, Iowa, there's a community nonprofit called All Cultures Equal, and they offer these English as a second language, the ESL classes for adults. They have them during the day and later in the evening so people can attend around their work and family schedules. And mothers bring their young children with them too. Now, the school system has also separate everyday class for ESL students. And they bring in employers to talk about careers in town. Now, I spoke with these students when I was the chamber director, and I told them about lots of different places they could work in our county that they had no idea about. The next limiting belief is hanging on to out-of-date job requirements, like you have to be strong to work here, or only people with a college degree should apply. Or we want people who can work shifts that change every week. To overcome this old limiting belief, reevaluate the requirements you have built into the job and application process. Those high job requirements are a barrier, and you might not need them anymore. So the new mindset, workforce mindset, is to break down the requirements and the work into smaller pieces that better fit the people you have available. Elliott Lake in remote northern Ontario is known as a retirement town, and their population is much older than the average town. Jesse, the owner of Jesse's Towing, really struggled to find young workers who could handle the physical labor that his jobs required. he decided to try hiring older workers, but he had to be pretty creative about his thinking. He modified his equipment and his tools to take less brute strength, and he was able to find more people who could do the work. That's the new mindset. Literally cut down the equipment if you have to. Another limiting belief is inflexible working hours. Now, Jesse also stayed flexible and provided shorter working hours for those semi-retired workers. One trend that we've seen lately in our travels is local people working single shifts, 1 day a week to help keep places open. Raymond, a local chamber director in Big Timber, Montana, and his wife work at the local brewery on the weekends as needed. And they're not permanent staff, they're just temporary help. It's fun for them as they get to see many of their friends and drink some beer. It's great for the new brewery until enough staff is hired. Now, this may be a temporary way to get through a workforce crunch. One of the best publicized limiting beliefs is we can't afford to pay better. Now, the solution may be easier than you think. The new workforce mindset is to value people enough to find a way. One coffee shop in Jefferson, Iowa was really struggling to find baristas, so they decided to try an experiment. They raised the pay for baristas to $15 an hour. They immediately received 47 applications with many well-qualified people. Now, they paid for it by raising the cost for a fancy coffee by a quarter, only 25 cents. You see that new workforce mindset? Let's find a way. Our next limiting belief is that even problem employees are worth keeping. So you're going to hear things like, oh, I could never fire that person. But when some people are creating drama or making other people, employees, leave the business, you're not going to solve your workforce problem until you let them go or help them change. We all know someone working in a local business who is driving away customers or making employees' lives miserable. The new workforce mindset is to care enough about all the other people to do what you have to do with that one person. Sometimes we just have to help someone move on and find a different job that's going to be a better fit for them, or find a way to help them grow into the job, or use technology to limit how much damage someone can cause. Now, when Becky and her husband ran a retail store, they had one of those employees who just had to have drama. Becky tolerated this for way too long because that person had actually worked there before Becky and Joe bought the business. Eventually, they noticed a serious cash shortfall, but they couldn't prove who was doing it. Well, Becky decided to set up a new integrated point of sale and inventory system that would give them better financial tracking. Turned out that employee quit the day before they started the new system. This freed them up to make some more positive new hires. Now, you can use technology or training to encourage someone to move along or to limit their damage. The important thing is to take action. You're never going to solve your workforce problem when you allow one person to make things worse for everyone. Our final limiting belief we're going to talk about today is about what we can and can't do because we're rural. In the past, we had to take what we could get because we're so far from the big cities. We'd say things like, oh, I wish we had that here, or we can't afford that new technology. To overcome that old limiting belief, ask if you're keeping up with today's technology and how much costs are dropping. We've heard from plenty of rural businesses who are making more use of automation that cuts down on their workforce requirements. We have friends from Oregon that told us about a local lumber mill. It's got a reputation of just churning through workers. No one wants to stand on their feet for an 8-hour shift of repetitive work in a noisy and unpleasant environment. Some people don't even last a full day. They quit after their first break on the job. And this leads to comments from those older managers about kids these days and not being able to tough it out. Well, the same family that owns that old mill recently built a new mill in a nearby small town. Now, it's going to yield just as much production, more or less, of an innovative new wood-based product, but it's nearly all automated. So instead of 450 jobs, this mill will have 50. And instead of all those jobs being repetitive, noisy, unpleasant, and tough, most of the 50 will be cleaner and more comfortable. Now, if you can't delegate a task to that automation technology, you can also look outside of your local workforce. Our friend Cheryl Lawson from Tulsa, Oklahoma, contracts on Fiverr for certain tasks. And there will be links at the end of this presentation with these places I've talked about. So Fiverr, those certain tasks include creating hundreds of coordinated graphics for her conferences. And she calls the people that she hires her magic elves, because it feels like magic to her to have those tasks completed quickly and inexpensively, and she doesn't have to do it herself. Did you realize that even manufacturing can now be a service like that? If you're struggling to find highly qualified machinists, you could outsource some production temporarily. Anyone can use an app to order manufactured parts or products from small manufacturers or independent machine shops that have their equipment sitting idle part of the time. They'll make products for you with 3D printing, computer-aided machining, manufacturing, laser etching, water forming, and lots of other processes using dozens of possible materials. And there's no minimum quantity required. You get instant pricing and rapid delivery. Sounds kind of like George Jetson's future, right? It's not. Just search for on-demand manufacturing, and you're going to find businesses like hubs.com and Xometry that do this today. And finally, how are you using augmented or virtual reality as training tools? You know that pilots have been training in flight simulators for decades. Well, now there are lots of different virtual reality, VR, or augmented reality, AR, job training examples, and costs are coming down all the time. Healthcare professionals can practice performing surgery or drawing blood with virtual patients that respond to them. Augmented reality headsets or glasses can provide real-time, step-by-step instructions that are overlaid on the real world. Boeing already uses AR for the technician to install and maintain the electrical wiring in their aircraft. So instead of pulling out that paper wiring diagram, and it's actually 20 feet long, now they just look through a set of AR glasses and they see labels right on the wiring and a precise diagram of what to do next. Boeing measured a 90% improvement in the quality of work done by their newly hired technicians and 30% reduction on how long it takes. Excuse me. Is there any reason you can't do things like this in your business? And before you let someone tell you it's way too expensive, you can get a VR headset just like this one for around $20, and you just pop your phone into it. Now, we do recognize that the workforce challenges you are facing may be more complex than the relatively simple stories we've shared today. What we would like for you to take away from this presentation is the mindset. Old limits around workforce don't have to be limits anymore. Presume that no matter what challenges you are facing, there are ways to make progress by taking small steps. Consider some of these ideas, even temporarily, to buy time for more long-term community-based projects. And please use the idea-friendly method to gather your crowd so you're not working on it alone, to build connections so you can find the resources you need, and to take small steps so that you're not stuck in the loop of going forward. I'd like to thank you. We do a weekly free newsletter, and you can sign up for it right at this link. Thank you very much for having me talk a little bit about this.
Well, thank you, Deb. So at this moment, I don't know, my mind is kind of filled with new ideas. Let's take a few minutes, just do a little bit of question and answer. If you've got a question for Deb or something that you're thinking about maybe a little bit differently now, or anything that you want to share, feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and start talking, or stick a question in the chat and we'll take it up. Anybody have anything to ask Deb? Anything to say? Any thoughts?
Hello, my name is Devin, and I'm Northwest Regional Director for the Wyoming SBDC Network. And I just wanted to say thank you. Such great insights and great things just to get the mind rolling and considering ways that we can support our local small businesses and encourage them to adapt a new mindset.
You're welcome, Devin. And you guys at the SBDC, you're my heroes. You do great work. Thank you for doing what you do. And work together. That's what's so fun about the Idea Friendly method. You gather your crowd of people that think like you and want to do the things you do too.
Hey, Deb, if you would stop sharing your screen,
Absolutely.
we'll be able to see each other a little better. Thank you. Anybody else? Any thoughts, questions?
So I grabbed the questions from the Chatterfall, and I think there's a few of them a lot of them you addressed in your talk, Deb, but there were quite a few questions about collaboration and how do we collaborate or gather our crowd. And there were some specific questions about, for instance, between community colleges and business needs. How do we collaboratively work together to fill the workforce gap? And
So let's think about some small steps for the community colleges and local businesses. As being a previous chamber director, I'm always going to say, are you shopping in your local businesses? Are you starting to build a relationship with these business owners? Many of our rural communities are run by one or two people or owned by one or two people. So you do have that opportunity. And don't hesitate to share about what you do too. It's just like making a friend. You go shop and you ask questions and who are you? Where do you live? And oh, you know what? I work over here. We've got some really great class. I mean, have a conversation with people. Start there and find out who your crowd is. So as you begin working together, know that you don't need permission to talk to people. In fact, 99% of the stuff you do, you don't need permission for. And start with creating relationships. I hope that helps. Answers your question, Lori?
yeah, that's great. There were some specific questions about rural nonprofits and how to better support rural nonprofits as well.
So that's a really good question. Here's something that you could do that I encourage all the time. It's called coffee and calendars. Bring not just your nonprofits together over a cup of coffee and tell them to bring their calendars with them and have a visit. And I would say, I sit on a board of a nonprofit and I'd say, okay, in January, we're doing these events. In February, we're doing this. In March, we're doing that. And someone else on another nonprofit would say, we're doing something on that same date at the same time. So we could work together to say, oh, okay, well, we'll move ours up to 1 o'clock. If you move yours to 3, now we've got a reason for people to come out and attend both events. The other benefit of that coffee and calendars, we don't know what all our nonprofits are doing. We may think we do, but we don't. I promise you we don't. And this is an opportunity to talk about what it is you actually do and what you're looking for. Let's see. Yeah, is it Devon? I want to say Devon. The SBD, hopefully your local SBDC advisor is a great resource for holding these community workforce meetings and entrepreneur network events. God, it's starting to sound boring to me. Make these gatherings and not agenda-driven only opportunities. People want to go to fun things and they want to learn more in a more relaxed environment. So get out of your boardrooms and maybe meet at a local restaurant over lunch or go sit in a park and have people bring their laptops. Lots of different ways to get together.
Great. Deb, thanks again for kicking us off with so many great ideas and encouraging all of us to think outside the box and think about what we can do that we can do now, that how we can build that sort of momentum. So I'm gonna share my screen. We're gonna break into small groups right now just to be able to continue this conversation. Well, I hope your conversation felt like it was rudely interrupted by the end of the breakout rooms like ours did. Rolling along, and here we are. So we are going to just take a really quick 5-minute break. And I do mean 5 minutes, so we can keep our agenda on track. But what we're going to do when we come back, so you do come back, is we're going to hear from 7 folks in different rural communities or who work with different rural communities across Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, with a little side trip into Washington State. Just some quick solution stories, things that they're doing or things that they're trying that seem to be taking on some of the workforce challenges that we've identified. So it is right now 35. It's either 9:35 or 10:35, depending on if you're in Pacific or Mountain Time. So if you can come back at
Okay, so I went to share my screen, the PowerPoint, but it turned up wonky. So let me see if I have the wrong view.
if you can't unwonk it, I think Marcy can back you up by
Okay.
running your slides for you.
No, it's doing this. Let's see. Let me try one more thing. I mean, if not, you guys will just see. Let's see.
I just have to note that for those of us who don't remember what it feels like to be at an in-person conference, I remember this happening all the time in person with the projector. My computer won't talk to the projector, so it's not just a Zoom thing.
And I am literally the worst. I think there's a few people here from like my board and they can vouch that. Like anytime we have a meeting or anything, it's like, just hold, please. Okay, I think this should, oh my goodness, work. Share screen. Okay, you gotta put into it. It says screen sharing has failed.
Okay, why don't we just, Marcy, do you want to share your screen? And Paige, you can just let Marcy know when you want to go to the next slide.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, so I am Paige. I'm from the Silver Valley Economic Development Corporation up in like the Idaho Panhandle. So Colleen Rawson was my predecessor, and she honestly, this was kind of like, she did the backbone work for this. I've been in the position since March and have since taken over her efforts, and we are really kind of gearing this back up. So it's the VTech program. So the Valley Technical Education Campus or / curriculum. So go ahead, next slide. So just a little project overview. So what VTech is, it was a technical education campus. And it actually switched into a curriculum because there's actually no brick and mortar facility. It did go back and forth in conversations between the committee and school districts, what would be a better suited for the area. And it came down to a curriculum within the schools was a best fit. So it was actually just a grassroots effort just to create extra things for our high school students to build skills and certifications that would allow them to stay and work in our communities. So it was just the gathering of what industries we had in the area, residents, businesses, and the CTE, which is the Career Technical Education in the school districts. And this happened over the course of 2 years, and it laid the foundation to create what the VTech program is. So there were listening sessions that were prior to this that gave us insight into what the community needed and what the kids wanted and what they were interested in doing. The VTech program, understood that the schools do have fiscal constraints, and that was essentially what caused the committee to move from a brick and mortar campus to just a curriculum within the schools. And then unfortunately, all 3 districts had letters of intent to start this curriculum, and then COVID hit. So, as we all know, that put a big damper on everything. And so it's now taken us this long to kind of get it geared back up. And every single school district is under new administration. So it was like 100 steps forward, but we're only about 4 steps back. So it's not that bad. So go ahead, next slide. So just really quickly, why we did it was actually local residents that saw the need to work towards solving the shortages in our trades in our area. We are a very blue collar area. We have mining, we have timber, we have tourism, we have tons of things in our area, and the residents were like, we're losing people. And this was even pre-COVID. So the kids were moving away and not coming back because our area just didn't have anything for them. And they were sick of the mining industry. It's very rich history in mining here, but that wasn't anything that they were interested in. And they felt like if they wanted to make a livable or decent wage, that was all that there was here for them. So this really geared up into like talking to the kids of what they wanted and helping them gain skills that they could then come back and bring to our area. The Kootenai Technical Education Campus was actually a big success story. They're just a county just right next to us, and they have a campus. And so we were able to kind of look at their success and what they were able to do. And that's really what sparked the conversation in our area. And honestly, our entire county can benefit from this by expanding trades and everything. So yeah, moving then into the partners and the roles, community members, all obviously K-Tech, having them actually gone through everything, we were able to learn from, the goods and bads. All 3 school districts needed to be on board, and we're on board and have since verbally said that they would like to continue to work towards this again. The Idaho Division of Career Technical Education, so they really helped create a sustainable curriculum. And then we're able to share their program best practices and then also potential hurdles. The Workforce Development Council, once again, they were a good outreach program, and we were able to kind of learn from them. The Economic Development Corporation, which is what I work for, we are a hub and we have access to industry partners. And then since conversations, initially this started just since my efforts have begun, the Panhandle Area Council and the North Idaho College, we have Gail is on our board of directors, and now even since I did this PowerPoint, U of I. So we have a lot of people and entities who are really interested in gearing this program back up and what they can do to support it. Okay, go ahead, next slide. So how can you do it? I mean, honestly, just start talking. Find, I call them, the STPs, the same 10 people, that always do everything, that are always involved in everything. And, it seems like it's preaching to the choir, but those STPs are the ones that are going to get the ball rolling and be the ones who are interested in this. So start talking to the students, find out what their vision is for themselves and, what you can do to solve that. And then get a commitment from the industries locally. They say, we all cry the same thing, like have all the problems, we don't have anything, but you can go to them and say, what do you need and what are you actually going to do to help us solve this problem? Go ahead, next slide. And then how the project is sustained. There are tons and tons of grants and opportunities out there for the career technical education. I mean, it is a shift from your regular college to, you know, trades and stuff. We need those tradespeople. So it was just to use basically what career and technical programs were already existing, and then use the CTE funding to help grow that. And then obviously to obtain grants, mostly just to keep the school districts, you know, keep their funding balanced, and to help pay, you know, teachers or instructors, because obviously the staff, coming as an old teacher, you know, the burnout rate is real and they're already overworked and underpaid. So just to expand on what we could offer them. And then honestly, then there you go again, it makes our area like a more desirable place to teach because we have more funding and opportunities here. Okay. And then just besides the, you know, the obvious of the community benefit, you know, better education, we're retaining our youth, which is who we have. You build businesses, you provide services, and you increase the incomes of, you know, everybody all around. So there were, oh, lost my train of thought. Next one. I'm sorry. And then lessons learned, you know, just make sure you involve partners early, you know, especially the schools and industry. You can have this grand vision and all the stuff that you want to do, but they're the ones that are going to keep you realistic. And there's no sense in taking those steps forward and being all excited about it just to have them come back and go, well, actually, that's not really going to work for us. So involve them early, get them included in those conversations to see exactly what is realistic, and have that defined vision and the outcome, so it keeps you on track and it can narrow your needs and also help in those conversations with those partners. And then once again, like, we're so fortunate that we have great education partners, relatively close, but use them as a resource. That's what they're there for. Wind them up early, and then just mostly don't give up. It's very tedious. Like I said, this has been pre-COVID, has started up again. Just keep going, don't give up, and know that, like, keep the end in mind. And don't try to do it all, because you will burn out and you won't be able to. Just 3 to 5 things and stay the course.
Right. Thank you, Paige. And Paige, I think you're a really great example of, you know, transition in leadership within your organization, and how, you know, the person who started it might not be the person who kind of finishes it. So kind of keeping an eye on that is really important too. Our next presenter is Davey Madison with the Montana Cooperative Development Center. Davey, take it away for your 5 minutes.
Sure, let me. Oh. Wait, how do I get to the?
Uh-oh, you were there.
Can you see this?
I can see the slide.
Okay. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. I will be pretty quick on this. I don't have a specific project. I'm just going to throw out some examples that we've been working on in our office. And then hopefully you guys can follow up with questions later. But real quick, so I'm the program director at the Montana Cooperative Development Center. So we are a statewide economic development organization that focuses on using the cooperative business model to find solutions for rural Montana. And we are a fully remote staff, so we cover the whole state, which is sizable. And so there are 6 of us on staff, and we kind of spread out and cover where everyone wants us to go. I am actually currently working on finishing up our annual report, and I'm at about 11,000 miles that we've traveled in the last year. So we get out there and do a lot. Really quickly, I'll just kind of go over what a cooperative is, just in case anybody's unfamiliar. So cooperative, at the end of the day, is a business model. It is governed by these 7 cooperative principles. So cooperatives are found in every basically every country on the planet, and they've been around for the past several hundred years, and they all kind of agree to focus on these 7 cooperative principles. Those are open and voluntary membership. They are democratically controlled, meaning there's 1 member, 1 vote, regardless of time or money into the cooperative. They are members' economic participation, meaning that members, if you are a member of a cooperative, it should be your duty to patronize your cooperative. They are autonomous and independent, meaning that no outside organization can come in and take over, or you can't be sold out from underneath of you. That's always done in that democratic nature. They do have focus on education and training. There's an impetus on all cooperatives to tell the world about the good of cooperatives. They are cooperation amongst cooperatives or other organizations. Because of the nature of them, they are a for-profit business. They are set up to be a viable business, but their first directive is not to make profit, it is to serve its members. And so if that service is that they have to cooperate with other businesses or other cooperatives, that should be done. And then the final principle is concern for community. So all cooperatives are started out essentially to solve a need for a specific community. And that community could be members of a town, it could be a region, it could be members of a specific industry, that whatever that community is, that the reason they are formed is to solve that. From their cooperatives, there is federal laws that govern cooperatives, but most cooperatives are set up on a state-by-state basis. So I will have a caveat throughout this presentation that I understand Montana cooperative laws, but all states are a little bit different. So everything I say falls under Montana, but we do have really good centers in other states that can help work through the state-specific issues. So I'm going to caveat that probably about 5 more times. So really quickly, and I'm just going to do a couple of examples that we have around the state just to kind of start conversation, that we've been using the cooperative model to address some workforce issues. One of the really great things about co-ops is they're pretty flexible, at least in Montana, that we can be in a lot of industry. We can be in any industry. We are not, some states are very specific about industries that co-ops can operate in. In Montana, we don't have that. So we're able to use the cooperative model to address quite a few issues. In our 11,000 miles we travel every year, almost every town, regardless of size, is going to have the same issues that come up regarding their workforce. And the top 2 issues are always going to be housing and childcare. And so we've been really trying to work with communities to create some ideas to help address that. In terms of childcare, what we're seeing mostly is that we are creating what we're calling investment cooperatives or community development cooperatives. They're essentially a community fund that's funded by local community members who become members and choose to make investments, usually into real estate, because there is a potential for a return on those. But they can invest into real estate, they could invest into specific businesses, they could set up revolving loan funds. You can kind of make those fit however you want them to be. Very specifically, one of the communities that we're working with is in central Montana. And the way that one came about was that we had a group of employers, and oftentimes it's the employers that are driving these housing and childcare conversations, because they can't get people to come there because they don't have a place to live, especially hospitals and schools. There have a lot of young single people, and there's no apartment rentals available in any of our communities in Montana, like at all. They don't exist. And so we've had employers come to the table, and in central Montana, we had a group of about 13 employers that included the school district, that included the hospital, that included some of the local banks and some of the regional employers as well. And they were kind of ran the gamut from very, very large to pretty small. But they have decided to create an investment cooperative specific for creating a childcare center. But childcare is not exactly a lucrative business. So the way that they're developing this is that they're considering, they're not there yet, is making a is building a building that has a beautiful childcare center, but also some retail spaces as well as housing so that they can subsidize the childcare so that they can rent it or lease it out to the childcare provider for a lot cheaper. They're not getting into the childcare business space. Basically, they are getting into being landowners or landlords essentially. And that's how they're choosing to do that. We're seeing that replicated in quite a few other communities as well, where it's either employers or a lot of times it's people who are in the community who maybe have a little extra time and extra money and don't want to see any of these businesses go away. And so they're all coming to the table and creating these investment cooperatives that they're able to make these investments into usually buildings, but they're also ones that are looking at making investments directly into the businesses to help support wages for the childcare centers or to help them open storefronts, things like that. I could go on and on and on with lots of examples for that,
but you should not, Davy.
I won't. But those are just some of the things that we've been seeing, and a lot of it is the employers coming to the table for that. And to start those, and again, very specifically in Montana, the way that we've been starting those in our development process, we have these 4 phases, which one of them we call an exploratory phase. And in that phase, really, that's a lot of community meetings. It's getting people together, having them come to the table and figure out, realizing that they all kind of have the same issues and trying to figure out ways to work forward on that. From there, what I would suggest is you call us if you're in Montana, or you call your local or your state cooperative development center, because it is not as straightforward of a process to set up a cooperative. But that's what we exist for. We're just there to help and to work through these ideas. We facilitate those meetings for you and kind of help you work through the ideas and make sure that it's really unique to each community. I won't continue anymore because I probably already went over 5 minutes, but those are just a few of the examples that we've been seeing, and we have, God, I just was going over, I think I have 7 that are building these very specific investment cooperatives to address workforce housing and childcare in 7 different communities in the state. So they're getting to be a lot of traction and very popular, and we're working through a lot of ideas around that right now.
Great.
So
Davy, thank you so much. What a great idea. And I just want to point out, or just remind everybody that after these presentations, we'll have breakout rooms. So if there's something you're really interested in diving into in more detail, that's a great place to do it. Our next presenter, and I'm going to start kind of for our next presenters, please don't think this is rude, but when you're down to around 1 minute left or so, if it seems like you're not super far through your presentation, I'm going to give you a little 1 minute warning. I'm not going to make you stop, mid-sentence, but we do want to leave plenty of room for the topic breakouts. So our next presenter is Cindy Radovich, who runs Sweet Zola in Boise, Idaho. And I'm going to, Cindy, let you tell us what Sweet Zola is.
Hi, guys. I have to give you a little bit of a warning. We are opening right now. So my plan was not to be in the shop while I was doing this, but one of my volunteers called in today. So this is literally right when we're opening, and my employees are coming in right now. She just pulled up. So bear with me when I explain to her. My mom is here. So Mom, I'm going to have you explain to Amy because I'm presenting right now. I own a candy shop. Well, I don't own it anymore. We started as a for-profit. We are now a nonprofit. So I am the founder of a candy shop that is run exclusively by individuals with developmental disabilities. And as I'm speaking, 2 people have pulled up in the parking lot, of course. So all of my employees have developmental disabilities. Hi, Jenny. I'm giving a presentation right now. I'll introduce you to Amy because she's walking in right now. So this might cut into some of my, hey, Amy, I'm giving a presentation right now. Okay. My mom's back in the back. She's going to introduce herself to you. So our motto is the only disability in life is a bad attitude. So you can go to the next slide. My PowerPoint is not really anything fancy. I just wanted to make sure that I could put pictures of my employees on there. So this is Jeff. The first slide was a picture of my daughter Zola, who the candy shop is named after. We have employed, I haven't kept track anymore. I think it's probably closer to 40 individuals now, but over 30 individuals with developmental disabilities over the past 3.5 years. You can go to the next slide. So I am a developmental therapist, a behavioral therapist. I provide crisis intervention in the Treasure Valley, which is Boise, Idaho, Boise, Meridian, Nampa, Caldwell. And I've had so many employees or so many clients over the years who have become adults and have tried to find employment and just struggled. And so I saw all these other things popping up over the country, over the world. And I don't have any money. I'm a single mom, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. And so I didn't have any money. And I just did it. I did it anyways. I fundraised. I took out a mortgage on my home. And I did it. So here we are, 3.5 years later. We survived COVID. We actually ended up closing down our first location and didn't think we were going to open up a second one. But when this location that I'm currently in right now opened literally right in front of my house, I thought I have to do it. It's destined. And so we opened up in this location about 1.5 years ago. And we struggle financially. I actually work full-time outside of the shop. I have a fly flying around me. You guys are going to be entertained by me today. I work full-time outside of the shop to pay the rent and to pay my employees. And it's worth it. It is 100% worth it because my employees are fantastic. So that's me on the left. That's Carrie next to me, Jennifer and Sean. Those are one of my currently 24 employees that are employed here. So one of the things that Deb had mentioned is that you need to build, and I can't remember the exact wording, but one of the first things she said is you need to build a team beforehand. I did not do that. And so I am a lesson that you should learn. You definitely need to build a team prior to opening. I did shower this morning, but this fly loves me. I did not build a team prior to opening and I've struggled throughout. And now I have this amazing team of employees with me. And we're a family and it's just amazing. So let's go to the next slide. So how the project is sustained, I already mentioned, I work full-time outside. We have a lot of help from the community. We've gotten a couple of grants. I apply for so many grants and we get very few of them, but we keep applying. If anyone has any suggestions on that, I am open to that because we apply like crazy and we're not getting them. We have yard sales, we have art shows outside of our parking lot. I don't know why this fly keeps landing on me. There's literally only one in the shop and it's a pretty big shop, but he loves my face. We have over 30 local artists in our shop and you can see kind of some of them in the background and they do consignment in our shop. So that's how we afforded to open in this location. We had actually sold everything in the previous location and we didn't really have any candy to open up in this space. We had $6,000 to open and this was a blank space. So we had to paint, we had to open everything. We had to do everything to get into this space. And so we had very little candy when we opened. So we just got a whole bunch of local artists who did consignment where we just have to pay them as we go, which really helps. And so yeah, we can go to the next slide.
How about one more minute, Cindy?
One more, that's fast. This fly kind of kept my time. So the overall community benefit, other than obviously creating this employment to individuals with developmental disabilities, first of all, we have a wait list of people who want to work here. Other people are complaining that they don't have enough staff. We have a huge wait list of people who want to work at Sweet Zola's, which is why I have 24 employees. Most of them are paid, which is why I work outside of the shop and why I don't get paid, because I just can't say no. There's so many people who want to work here, and I'm not a pushover. It's just to see the joy of all of my employees in this community, creating a community, providing a safe place. I lost my slide. You don't mind, really quick. All of my employees have become friends. It provides socialization for everyone. Now we can go to the next one. The lessons that I learned, I did fundraise first. We just didn't have enough, but taking that mortgage out was amazing and I don't regret it. We have such amazing volunteers at the shop. It's just been such a wonderful experience. And I have so much more that I could say, but 5 minutes goes so fast.
It's not fair.
I encourage everyone, if you can open a place that employs individuals with developmental disabilities, you will not be short of staff. And especially in a rural community, I recommend it. It's so wonderful. I never leave here without a smile on my face. And I wish Amy was right here so you guys could see her, but while others are presenting, I'll have her come poke her head in. Josh, you want to come and say hi really quick? This is Josh. He's one of my employees.
Hi,
and we'll say
Josh.
goodbye.
Hi, Josh.
Guys. Amy, come say hi really quick. Hurry really quick. You can come say hi. This is Amy, my other employee.
Hey, Amy.
Hello.
Okay, we'll let you guys go. Thank you so much.
Cindy, thank you. Super inspirational. Thanks for sharing your shop with us. Our next presenter is Amy Murphy with Western Wyoming Community College. Amy.
Thank you. Let me get my screen here real quick for it. Can you see my screen? Did it pop back up
Yep.
there?
Looks good.
Okay, I guess I can't see it. Okay, all right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a partnership we have here. Our project is actually on valuing education and industry partnerships. And the point of my presentation is to kind of show how a community college and industry work together to kind of meet a need in rural areas to kind of fill that workforce gap. The first slide here. It just is me. It's who I am. I'm the Dean of Outreach and Workforce Development here at Western Wyoming. I have over 30 years experience kind of working with business and industry developing these types of programs. Just to kind of share different programs that we have developed over the years is like through industrial maintenance, plan ops, as you can see there, and then power line technology is one of the biggest ones that we just kind of brought on board here at Western. Why this is so instrumental is when you look at a rural community and you look at what the needs are for workforce and everything, you have to identify what the problem is, how you're going to solve it, how you're going to achieve that result. And to do that, you have to meet with key personnel. So what I listed here is a bunch of individuals who actually all got together to demonstrate what the need was in the local workforce. And you can see there we have Black Hills Energy, we have IBEW, we've got Utility Workers Union of the America Union Wireless, Rocky Mountain Power, Lower Valley Energy, just a wide variety of industry partners that came together and noticed a need. In the state of Wyoming, we did not have a power line program. So students were leaving the area, the workforce was leaving the area to go to other schools to get this training, and unfortunately don't always come back. And this was a way to try to capture our individuals and keep them here. The mission of our program when we met with the individuals is actually to ensure the demand for skilled line persons are met, at the same time integrating in the essential skills that are embedded into the program. As you know, all the other presenters have shared it and such amazing stories with it. Part of the piece that's missing there is the essential skills. A lot of the employers say, oh, we can train people once we get them, we just got to get them, but it's the essential skills that they're missing. So what we did is we integrated that into our curriculum. So we do the critical thinking, the project management, you know, keeping things on time, showing up on time, that's a big thing, and just kind of communication as a whole. Our curriculum, how we develop the program, again, when you go to look at developing programs, that they're quite expensive, and having those industry partners really helps, but you got to start with the basis of what your curriculum is about. So what we did is we actually looked at reviewing the existing curriculum that we had on board, and what we did is we packaged it with some new courses, because For a power line technician, they do have to know a lot of electrical. We already had that program in place, so it's kind of coupling new things with it, and we repackaged it into a new program. As you can see, excuse me here, as you can see from the curriculum that came out, we have courses that are the new courses that were added are the POLT, which is our Power Line Technology program. We actually only had to add 4 additional courses that kind of led towards getting this certificate and/or degree program with us. What I highlighted there is you can see that there's courses that are highlighted in red, and those classes can be done in a year, which actually helps our workforce as far as individuals who are just looking to go right as soon as possible in industry. Or there's the 2-year program, which is what our industry partners actually prefer, but they didn't want to limit anyone who might have a financial need to get into the workforce quicker by not being able to do that 1-year program. Our goals for the program, and it's our goal kind of for any program that we do, it's a challenging career, right? Obviously, doing a lineman program, I personally don't want to climb a pole and be out there in like 30 below 0 temperatures and with the winds, and you guys all know the winds here in Wyoming are pretty strong and all of that. But it is a challenging career. They're stable careers. These are a lot of opportunity here for growth. They're well paying. Base pay generally for a lineman program is right around the $120,000 mark, which is incredible for someone to come out and actually get an opportunity like that. And if you caught what I said, it was base pay. That's not even the overtime that kind of accompanies this. And the piece that's nice about this program is it's local careers. So the students who go through the training can actually go back right into their community and kind of work in the industry as well. So again, the key to the program is the corporate and government partners. Now, to put on a program such as this, and we are in a rural area, we're in a very small area. We have less than 20,000 people in our town that we are located in, but our service area covers 22,000 square miles is what we service as far as our community college goes. And to put on a program like this is extremely costly. We were extremely fortunate to have a partnership with the Wyoming Innovation Partnership that actually gave us the funding to start this program up. Why did they give it to us? Because we had the industry partners that provided support letters to show the workforce is needed in this industry, and we really need to support a program like this locally. So as you can see there, there's a picture there that illustrates Rocky Mountain Power. They're actually our local energy or electric provider here, and they obviously have a strong lineman connection here. They have donated an incredible amount of equipment to highlight within the program to kind of illustrate to students real application on real equipment. That is key to any program, is to have that partnership as well. And if you notice on the right hand side there, we have 2 students that Lower Valley Energy actually sponsored their tuition for the program. You can't do programs like this without the partnership of industry, which leads to actually kind of employment. Now, the next piece that I want to share with you is actually the continuous quality.
Amy, about 1 more minute.
Okay. This is done through advisory boards and kind of like highlighting what we do in the classroom and seeing where we need to fix it. If you kind of notice there, those are our students that are actually out there performing the jobs. Methods of actually kind of putting this together in promotion is keeping your stakeholders informed. We do that through social media. We do it through print. We do it through digital. We do it through the internet as well. So those are just some examples of that. The most important slide that I would tell you that if I could share this with you, and I apologize, Michelle, I might go over 30 seconds, but the piece that this is really good as far as replicating the success of a program is you need to know your community and your workforce needs. And it doesn't matter the size of your community, it's knowing what your community and their workforce needs are, identifying who your partners are that you can work together, developing relationships and strategies to carry that out. And the most important piece is actually listening to the employer, to listen to what their needs are. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Don't assume what you're doing, they know you're doing it. So communicate it back, implement the marketing and program plan, and always obtain the feedback and accept it openly and kind of go through that continuous quality improvement. And my last slide is just, hey, I wanted to thank you. I apologize, Michelle, if I went over.
It's all right, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I detect a theme emerging about really talking and engaging and listening to your community. It seems to be coming up quite a bit. We're going to go to Sean Claffery, who's with the Southwest Montana Sagebrush Partnership and who is on the ball with sharing his screen. Go ahead, Sean.
Okay, I unmuted myself successfully too. Good. Well, thank you very
Works for
much.
us.
My name's Sean Claffey, and I'm the conservation coordinator for what we call the Southwest Montana Sagebrush Partnership based out of Dillon. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share what we're doing here. I'll try to make this quick and maybe go off my notes, not as much. But so first, I'd say we may be a little different than the rest of the presenters. We are a natural resource and conservation collaboration. But why I was here today is, just like all of you, we realize the shortage in workforce, and that's what I have to share today. So real quick, who is the partnership? I won't go through all these, but it's pretty much every one of your natural resource land management agencies, some hook and horn private foundations, and other regional partners. So what is the Southwest Montana Sagebrush Partnership? And this is some overview before I get to my workforce development thing. But basically, we all recognize the need to scale up and do more cross-boundary conservation work in our sagebrush grasslands. And more applicable to this conversation is, after a year or two, we realized in order for our conservation to really mean something, we needed to figure out how can we connect our work directly to our communities more. So just again, for a little more context, this is what we're working on, the threats, the sagebrush steppe. It's all out there in the field, running chainsaws, using hand tools, mapping, inventory type work. And we've been fairly successful in since 2018. Some of our metrics or stats there on the side. But really, I wanted to share those stats and that success because what we're trying to do is leverage that success to build workforce too. So leverage our success in natural resource accomplishments and the opportunity in natural resource with funding and other partners to make an impact on our community. How we're really doing that is it's been pretty cool. There's been opportunity to build capacity within our partnership through positions that we've had funded through various grants over the last few years. So this is a quick kind of snapshot of our org chart of the partnership. So what's cool here is there's different funding partners on the left of each position, and the hosting entity, the entity that decided they would hire the person with the grant funding on the right. So it's been a hodgepodge of partners making this happen. On the bottom right is a logo for the Youth Employment Program, or YEP, and that's what I'm going to kind of focus on here. So with all that work, we want to scale up. We need a workforce. So kind of two facets to what we're doing is we're trying to develop local contractors. So we're building contracts, we're making work available, being as creative as we can to engage local contractors and get local contractors to start up and take some of this workload on if there wasn't that workforce already that existed. And then second, finally, the Youth Employment Program. The Youth Employment Program we created because we needed a workforce right now to do some of this work. But obviously, other benefits is we're training a workforce. We're engaging the community more, that hopefully some of these folks stick around and become some of our local contractors down the road or work for some of our local contractors. We did this because we were using a lot of Montana Conservation Corps programs, which is an AmeriCorps type program. But from the beginning, I always thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if we had local youth and young adults doing this work out here with us? Those AmeriCorps programs are great. But yeah, how can we engage young adults and local kids doing this work? So that was, that, and we needed a workforce right now is why we created this. So how did we do it? Just real quick is through another opportunity, another grant opportunity, we saw a chance to kind of nest seed funding within this larger proposal to maybe build a program over here. And about that same time, I was exposed to the youth employment program out of Salmon, Idaho. So I picked up the phone and called Steve Adams over in Salmon and asked what it would take to expand his program over here into Dillon. He was doing exactly what I thought. He was hiring kids locally to do this work, and he's been doing it since early to mid 90s. So in 2022, this is what the youth employment program looked like here. Just a snapshot of the kind of positions they're hiring. They had 18 to 22 individuals working through the summer, six persons per crew, 3 crews working all summer. So this was really our first big year. We're pretty young, or we're pretty new into this, and it was a good year for us. So we got it going. How are we going to sustain it? And really, it's about the partnership projects. We need to keep coming up with projects for work for them to do, not just for YEP, but for our local contractors. We've realized with YEP, making them fully functional, we need more private investment. Right now, we've been able to, as a partnership, kind of grab a lot of federal funds and get this going, but we need some private investment to pay for things that federal funds can't pay for. It was pretty cool hearing from Davey Madison on the co-op idea with housing. That was just a conversation I had yesterday that I was exposed to for the first time. So really cool to see Montana. There might be an opportunity there. And then finally, just keep recruitment going, keep kids interested in what we're doing. This is a little different, but who benefits from this? And I work for the Nature Conservancy, and our mission is what's good for people in nature. And really, this youth employment program and engaging local contractors and natural resource work is good for everybody. The way I've been describing it to folks is the amount of conservation work is overwhelming, needed is overwhelming, as is living wage jobs in our rural communities. And we are the beginnings, and not the only effort, but another effort to try to connect the two. There are literally billions being spent across the West on sagebrush steppe conservation. And there is opportunity, we feel, to capitalize on this momentum, especially here in Southwest Montana, to develop a new workforce and industry to try to connect more people to that conservation work. And, with the idea of, if we can do that, connect people more directly and make it more part of everybody's everyday life, or our community's everyday life, we can make conservation more durable and sustainable, make it part of our culture. So with that, I think I'll end it there. Try to make it pretty fast for you. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean. Much appreciated.
Yep.
Our next presenter, nice photos. Our next presenter is Jade Stellman with Washington State University, going to talk a little bit about rural healthcare.
Yes, thank you. So, is my screen sharing okay? Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. So I'm Jade Stellman, and I'm with Washington State University. I'm the program administrator for the residency program that we're starting in Pullman, Washington, which is a really exciting endeavor. In the interest of time, I really want to focus more on what we're doing, less on how we're doing it, because it's not really a model that I think you'll all replicate, but it's a service that I think we can all partner together to solve some problems. So our project overview is a residency program, of course. Medical students go to medical school for their 4 years, and then they have kind of the finishing school where they become the kind of doctor they're going to be. So that's an additional 3 to 7 years, depending on their specialty. So we're creating a family medicine program. So that's a 3-year program. It benefits communities because that's a supplemental physician workforce. These residents, they're MDs and DOs, and they're seeing and treating patients. So our program has 3 per cohort, and it's a 3-year program. So when we're at full complement, that's 9 additional physicians in our small community, and 9 additional physicians, even though they're in training, so they're not seeing the volumes that other physicians are. That's a huge boon to healthcare. It improves access to care. So people who otherwise have challenges to get into a physician, we've got increased physician capacity, and it improves quality of care and health outcomes. Our program's unique because it's in a critical access hospital. So normally residency programs, they're in big centers. They're in the Seattles, they're in the Spokanes, the Boise's, the Salt Lake Cities. Our program is all 3 years at a rural community. There are other programs that are a great solution to the rural workforce problem for healthcare, in that their rural training tracks are 1-2 programs. Residents will spend their first year in the urban center and then 2 years in a rural center. But that's challenging because then you're expecting that resident whose wage is small, they don't make a lot of money, and they have to move a year into their training and go to another community. They also train in a community with some of their most vital learning experiences, where they have a lot of resources that in rural practice they won't have. So we're trying to build a blueprint for future rural training so that rural physicians train all 3 years in the rural community, are really skilled and adept for rural practice, and want to stay in rural because that's what they're used to. Really quickly, why we did it are some statistics here. 20% of Americans live in what's considered a rural community, but only 9% of the physician workforce is in rural communities. In an urban center, an urban community, you've got about 53 physicians, primary care physicians. So that would be your PCP for 100,000. And in a rural community, it's less than 40 primary care physicians per 100,000. 9 out of 10. So the statistic there, WSU did a study that in rural Washingtonians had increased mortality in 9 of the 10 leading causes of death when you adjust for age. And that's we attributed that to the lack of access to healthcare. It would take 180,400 additional physicians for rural Americans to have the same access to healthcare as urban Americans do. And that's an increase of 20% of the workforce. So that's not an insignificant thing. So while our program, training 3 new residents per year and graduating 3 per year, is a drop in the bucket, hopefully the blueprint is still creating more, that pipeline for rural physicians to go and meet that. We've got a lot of partners in our endeavor. Week before last, we actually had ribbon cutting for our residency clinic. And this represents all the different individuals that were part of that. So our main partners are Washington State University and Pullman Regional Hospital. Those are the 2 main individuals, the 2 main entities that are taking on this endeavor. We've got the benefactors. So we've got the HRSA. We received a rural training, it's called the Rural Residency Planning and Development Grant for startup funds. And then Premier Blue Cross also gave us a large grant for operational costs for the first several years. We've had private grants from the Sunderland Foundation, the Murdoch Foundation, and then there's been philanthropy from individuals donated significant funds to the point that we were able to build our clinics entirely with donated funds for this endeavor, people who see the value. We've also got great resources. There are a lot of different entities out there that are trying to solve this problem of rural training. And so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We've got folks who could give us resources and help us along the way. To do a residency program requires hospitals and clinics as training sites, physicians to provide leadership and faculty, startup costs need to be provided, and then there's ongoing costs. It costs on average $200,000 per resident per year to train a new physician. And in rural, that cost is actually higher, not lower, because in a large center, that average cost is averaged over a large group of people. That could be averaged over 50 to 200 residents. And for us, where we have 9 residents and we still have some of the fixed costs, it can be very expensive to train rural physicians. But the need is real and we need to do it. The lessons that we learned that we want to share, there are medical students who want to train in small communities. We have our 3 slots for our first cohort that we're currently going through applications. And at current cost, this morning's tab, we have 512 applicants for our 3 slots. So there are medical students who want to be in rural communities and they want to train rural. So we need to create these. As we've tried to solve the physician shortage problem, we've created a lot more medical schools, and creating residency programs has not kept pace. We are not creating residency programs to match that. So every year there are more medical students who get out of their medical school training and can't find a residency program. There are doctors who want to teach in small communities. By starting the residency program, it made it easier for all of the area physicians to recruit to their practice because they're able to say, and we'll have the opportunity to train residents. And that's an exciting prospect that people want to be a part of. There are collaborative networks to guide along the way. And so we found those partners. So again, we weren't reinventing the wheel. And they're innovative solutions. So one thing that I'll share just very quickly, there's a program in Asheville, North Carolina that is doing something really interesting. They're creating the first ever hybrid residency program. So they are training, instead of 4 family medicine doctors in their rural community per year, they're training 1 family medicine doctor, 1 internal medicine doctor, 1 OBGYN, and 1 psychiatry resident, all in 1 cohort. So they're sharing some of those efforts. And so they couldn't justify all the costs that it would take to train just 1 family medicine doc, but 1 of each specialty. And that's really going to revolutionize our ability to provide care. We're excited to be able to offer family medicine, but what we need is psych and these other things. So this hybrid model is really great. And I'll just wrap up really quickly. Other communities can do this by finding a physician champion, helping us lobbying for the Rural Physician Workforce Production Act, which is kind of installed in Congress right now. This would allow small communities to access the same CMS reimbursement funding that larger centers get. Right now, it costs us more to train physicians, but we don't get the reimbursement that larger centers do. So anyone who wants to reach out to their representatives to help us get that passed, we'd appreciate it. And stay connected with us. So I'll throw my email in the chat, wrapping up right now. What we really want to know are what are the healthcare needs that are preventing you from meeting your workforce needs? And how can we help meet that? We're trying to train these rural physicians to meet everyone's needs. We would love and really appreciate if you could reach out and let us know what those needs are. What are the gaps and the barriers so that we can try to be a solution for that? Thank you so much.
Wow, Jade, thank you. What a great program. And really addresses some super critical needs in rural communities. Our last presenter is Troy Reichert, who is with the founder and director, actually, of the Skilled Trades Camp in Sunrise, Wyoming. Troy.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, got it. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. I'm just gonna get this bigger so I can see it. Is it showing up good on there now? Okay, so I teach skilled trades camps. I'm just a shop teacher in Guernsey, Wyoming. And a couple of years ago, Harbor Freight Tools for Schools contacted me and said, pitch us an idea that's a little outside of the box that would promote CTE across maybe your area or across the state. And so you see there that Harbor Freight Tools for Schools and the Wyoming Department of Ed were the first people involved with getting this started. As far as how it started, again, it was just a Zoom meeting in the summer of 2020 when we were having all that fun. And I thought, how about we work on the oldest YMCA in the state of Wyoming, which is in a little town called Sunrise. It's a old abandoned mining town, population of 1. The gentleman in the bottom left is John Voight, not the actor, but the redneck rancher from Chugwater. And he's always been interested in helping youth and promoting the history of Sunrise. So I said, meet me at the bar for burger and beer, and I'll pitch this idea to you. So I told him I would like to bring in kids from across the nation going into grades 10 through 12 to work on the YMCA. We would find the funding, we would lodge them there, we would take care of everything. All I was asking from him is that we were allowed to be in his town. He would give the kids a tour of Sunrise one night. There's an archaeological dig site going on across the street there. They're finding 13,000-year-old artifacts. So we incorporated that into the evening activities. Wednesday night, we floated the river and showed the kids the Oregon Trail ruts and Register Cliffs. So again, we're keeping it fun yet educational. Thursday night, we take the kids down the road to Hartville, Wyoming. It's the oldest bar and restaurant in town. They serve incredible surf and turf. And so we do that. And then the University of Wyoming collaborated with us. So we take the kids on a tour Friday afternoon, stay overnight, and Saturday morning in Laramie so that they get a free tour of the campus. And he thought that was a great idea. As far as who's benefiting and how this is all working, you can see the photos there. The front entrance is in your top right or top left. It used to be just an old dingy rundown white, and now it's a nice, we took it back to the 1970 original look. So it's got that nice brown color now. You can see the doors and windows that have been replaced. And in the middle of this slide, I've got pictures of some kids. The boys are there at the University of Wyoming a couple summers ago. The girls are floating the river. And one of the boys is sporting his brass belt buckle that he won for winning the skilled trades competition that week. The partners that we have and their roles, it's very simple. We just applied for grants. We reach out to people. And what we do is we just promote ourselves a lot. So we hold open houses where business and industry leaders are welcome to attend. We've had state legislators there. Jillian Balo was our previous superintendent of education. She showed up and talked to the girls at one camp. And we just bring in anybody and everybody that might be interested or that could help us out. That's led to free goodie bags, free hats. You see the red van there. That was compliments of the Daniels Fund. They invited me to apply for a grant. They funded us for just under $100,000 this past year. And again, this is open to any boy or girl going into grades 10 through 12. And as far as, I can't read my slide because my stuff's in the way, but anyway, how can you do it in your community? I'll just put it in the plainest, simplest terms I can. Get off your butt and do it. I'm just a shop teacher. I teach all day, I coach in the afternoon and evening, and I squeeze this in. So obviously it takes organization skills, but build those relationships you have. If you've had somebody say, hey, I know a person, take them seriously, write that name and number down and make connections. The big one that I'd also touch on here is apply for those grants. I was amazed at how many grants don't get used every year because people either don't know about them or don't think they'll get them. And the worst thing that's going to happen is they say no. So apply for those and keep it fun. How we've been doing this, again, we're just going on grants and donations right now, but we're going to continue to supplement ourselves. We have offered now to businesses, they can enter at the red ochre level, iron ore level, copper level. And based on how much money they provide us, depends on what we do for them, whether it's give back through advertising, hashtagging them on social media, those sorts of things. And keep it fun for the kids. Again, if those kids go back, we had kids go back to Pennsylvania last year. 4 kids went back and they brought 12 back this past summer. They talk. If they like it, they're going to sell it. And again, invite people through open houses to come see it for themselves. And then what it does, it brings money into our community. I've got 3 seniors this year in Pennsylvania that want to move out here next summer and start working. They want to build their life in the state of Wyoming, which was kind of what we had planned. We want to keep the in-state kids here to continue working and improving their skills. We want to bring kids from out of state and let them see what Wyoming has. And we're building bridges between people of all ages. The elderly people are now starting to realize teenagers aren't lazy. They will work. The younger kids are also seeing that they are a necessity and they can't just slough around and play video games all the time because their skills are needed. And as far as what you can do or other things in your community, get that infrastructure in place first if you want to do something like this. Again, stay organized is the big part. And don't be afraid to spend a little bit of your own money. I had to use my own vehicle and a little bit of my own money that first summer in 2021. And here this past summer, I got paid to be doing it. So our email is there if you want to get in contact with me, or my phone number. I'll gladly share. You can steal any ideas that I have. Again, I want this to work in other communities as well. So thanks for letting me present.
Thanks, Troy. A super quick question. How do students apply?
I've got a flyer. I got a Facebook page called the Sunrise Wyoming Project. You'll be able to find that flyer on there. But if you just contact me, I'm putting the new flyer together, the new brochure, because again, we're going to 2 co-ed camps this next summer. They're going to be in about mid-July. So if you just keep an eye on that Facebook page, and we'll also be shooting it out through various media outlets over the next couple of months.
Great. Thanks, Troy. And thanks to all of our presenters. It's super interesting to get some snapshots about what's going on around our 3 states and actually beyond. And thanks to Jade for opening up the door for all of our communities to tell her what our rural healthcare needs are. And I encourage everybody to take her up on that, because it's a kind of a potential partnership that could go places. So we are going to take a very short, just 3-minute stand up, stretch, do what you need to do, break. And when we come back, we're going to go into breakout rooms on the topics. And I understand if it's really hard for you to pick one. So just know that all of these will be recorded. And this is my opportunity to remind everybody who is a breakout room facilitator, and you know who you are, to please remember to record your session once you're in it, so that we can post all of these on the website. So you won't totally miss out if you have 7 top priorities on your breakout room list. So the breakout rooms are going to be Deb Brown, the keynote speaker, is going to be in a breakout room about idea-friendly workforce solutions. Paige Olson and Amy Murphy will be in a room on career technical education. Cindy Radovich will be in a room on employing people with disabilities. Jade will be in a room on healthcare workforce. Davey Madison in a room on cooperatives, and Troy and Sean will be in a room on hands-on training programs. And then Lisa Kunkel, who we haven't heard from, will be in a room specifically aimed at business owners and entrepreneurs. So I invite you to Think about where you want to be when we come back. Just take a quick break. So right now it is 42 past the hour, 10 or 11, depending on where you are. So we're just going to take a quick break. And when you come back, the breakout rooms will be open, and feel free to just go into the breakout room that you want. This list will be posted. So we're not positive what you're going to see when the breakout rooms open. So in case you have a question, just go to the number of the breakout room, which I think we tried to label them, but we're not positive it's going to work out. So just pick the number of the breakout room that you're interested in and go in. So right now it's 43. Let's come back at 10:46 or 11:46 and get back into some conversation. And thanks again to all the presenters. Well, that felt better than 10 minutes. We got through much deeper conversation. This is just now an opportunity for us all to kind of bring reflections, questions, kind of insights all together. So we can all sort of see each other and hear each other. If you can turn on your videos so people can see you, that'd be great. That's a good time to do that. So Lori and I are here to just kind of help the conversation move along. But does anybody have anything that's on your mind? Anything that maybe from the breakout sessions, maybe just insights you've picked up over the course of the roundtable? What's on your mind?
I'll start.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I'm Lisa. I'm in rural Wyoming. Something from our breakout room to remember is in our rural locations we're in, our resources can be located across state lines or in other larger cities, and we can lean on that. And something that Rebecca shared with me, she's out of Helena, Montana, is a program in Eastern Montana that teaches high schoolers how to build cabins or mini homes that are then used to house the teachers in that district. And then Devin and I springboarded on that, saying in our rural Wyoming, could that be used for housing for seasonal farm workers or nurses? So exciting things, really. Thank you.
Super interesting. Who else? So we're having some folks who've been having little technical difficulties and weighing in the chat. And we had that in our breakout room with a few people sort of coming and going. But still, we had a really interesting conversation that was kind of about the nuts and bolts of how do you start these kind of programs, and who do you talk to first? And even just sharing one contact can lead down that sort of road of building a program that really works in your community.
Well, and we talked about limiting beliefs, which was pretty interesting. One person shared that, why do they require 2 to 5 years of college education when they do workforce training on the job? That was kind of interesting.
I'd be curious to know if the entrepreneurship group talked any more about, or talked at all about remote work opportunities. And, one of the things that we have going on here is there are a couple of groups locally that are trying to develop entrepreneurial talent that can grow businesses that will actually grow outside of the community here itself. People that have done startups in other areas are doing a lot of hands-on coaching here. And I couldn't be two places at once, but I was kind of interested to know if that was discussed at all in that other group.
We did not discuss that, besides both acknowledging that we are remote workers ourselves who are in that small group. How are you training the workforce then for that?
Mostly what's going on there is it's being done as coaches or mentors are being recruited in the community that have startup experience and different aspects of startup experience, whether it's financial or whether it's team building or whether it's, business modeling, and interested people in the community, are recruited to come into this with business ideas that they have, and if they get accepted into the program, then they're kind of taken on under the wing of some of these mentors in the community that can help them learn how to potentially grow a business that not only could sustain them, but can grow, and start bringing resources into the community from outside. We've seen, I was just at a conference yesterday where it's incredible the percentage of non-location dependent businesses in the area has increased from like 20% 10 years ago to almost 50% of the businesses operating in the area today are basically remote, non-location dependent. That was the term that they used.
Jim, what area is that?
That's in Teton County,
Very interesting.
Wyoming. Yeah.
I'm wondering
So
if you're
around
referring to
Jackson.
programs, Jim, such as Impact 307. Impact
No, I'm not
307.
familiar with it.
Okay, so Impact 307 it's kind of a combination of an accelerator and incubator program, but not every site has an incubator. There is currently a startup challenge in Fremont County, which is fairly close to you. So I'll put the name in the chat and you can just look it up. It is a UW hosted program, and it does work very similar to the design that you summarized, in that there is an application period and entrepreneurs are able to submit and pitch their idea. And then from there, they proceed or are eliminated from a series of rounds. However, even eliminated applicants are still set up to work with either the SBDC network or other impact counselors. And so you may also have heard of something called G-Beta, which is based in Cheyenne, which is definitely an accelerator program. But those are two that I'm familiar with that are operating in our state.
That's great.
Jim, just to expand off of that, Devin's not wrong. There's quite a few here in Wyoming that has that. We just did that here in Sweetwater County. We had the pitch, our launch for it, and did the final pitch to kind of award the entrepreneurs. But she's absolutely correct. Even if you don't make it to the final and are kind of like I want to say the ones that they kind of like help fund, they do provide that SBDC support.
That's great.
Other thoughts, questions?
Just real quickly from our tech room, and Paige and Amy, referring to what Jim was saying about mentorship and the idea of drawing on retirees in the area as mentors, and maybe collaborating with high school students and combining that age gap where each can learn from the other and support each other.
Yeah, I think another, along those lines, the difference between, learning a trade and being a tradesperson and operating a trade business is something that we see a little bit of a disconnect, not necessarily at the entry level, but as someone, becomes a business owner rather than just a trade worker. Sometimes, obviously all the time it's a different skill set, and they haven't really had time because they've been so busy in the trade to pick up the skill set of actually operating a trade business, which is a very different skill set than the trade itself. And so sometimes we see a bit of a gap there that mentorship can do oftentimes a better job of filling than actual formal education.
There was an interesting model in South Central Montana. I don't think it's going on anymore, but it was a model where the organizer brought together consultants who worked in different areas of business support and entrepreneurial support, and small business owners and entrepreneurs. And once a month they would meet. And it was sort of a mastermind where one or two of the business owners would basically stand up and say, this is what I'm dealing with. And so it was a chance to have kind of an open forum for advice, but it was also a chance for consultants and business owners to meet. And he paired, the organizer paired this program with a Montana grants program that provided training grants for small businesses. And then he was able to actually arrange grant money to help pay some of those consultants to work with the small businesses. So it's sort of a win-win-win situation. Jim mentioned in the chat, SCORE is a great resource too. Okay, any other thoughts before we move to wrap up?
I'm just curious to know as to the sharing. This is such an important session, and I just want to know if the recording will be made available to share with our teams.
Yes, so the whole thing is recorded and all of the breakout rooms are recorded. They will be posted on the We Can website at the link that Marcy Miller just put in the chat. And we'll be following up by email. So everybody will get a follow-up email with an invitation to look at all of the resources that are on the website, including all of the recordings. I'm going to share my screen for just a moment. We want to do one more chatterfall like we did in the beginning. And it works the same way. So type in the chat one new idea, one aha moment, or some sort of takeaway that you'll go home with. We'll give you a minute to do that, a couple minutes, but don't hit send until I say send, and then we'll all hit enter at the same time. So this is idea, aha moment, takeaway.
Gosh, there's so many.
And while you're doing that, I just want to respond to a question in the chat about the attendee list for contacts follow-up later. Yes. So we'll be able to be in touch with each other. All right. Let's start the chatterfall. Hit send. People love the coffee and calendars idea for nonprofits. Thinking outside the box, getting ideas from other people, breaking down into small doable steps, all kinds of things. And lobbying for the bill to reimburse rural communities for rural training for residents. That's something that we could all do together. With quite a bit of firepower if we all go back to our communities to do that. All right, Lori, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap us up.
Is there one more slide there?
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been really amazing, enlightening. My brain is overflowing here with ideas and things to think about that I'll be reflecting on. We are putting together a toolkit and guide on workforce solutions, including the examples we heard about today and beyond. We couldn't showcase every great program out there, but we'll be plugging some of those into this resource guide. We will have the resource guide, we'll have the recording, we'll actually give you timestamps to where you can go and watch the different breakouts and different presenters. And then we will also have a link to Deb's PowerPoint. Thank you for offering that, Deb. And a more thorough report on the survey results from the rural employer and employee surveys. And we would like to do an evaluation of this roundtable. And so when we send you the email with the link to everything, we greatly appreciate it if you would do that short survey evaluation for us. We greatly appreciate that feedback because we plan to do more of these because there are lots of issues that are looking for solutions out there in our rural communities. So we'll be back.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks
very
everyone
much.
for attending. Thanks to everybody who helped plan this. Thanks to our breakout room facilitators, all of our solution stories presenters, and thanks to Deb Brown for kicking us off with some wisdom from across multiple communities and a lot of years of working in this field. So just big thanks to everybody. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other. As we sign off, we have about 5 minutes left. So here's 5 minutes of your day as a gift back to you. But feel free to stay around for a few minutes if you want to chat for just a few minutes afterwards. And thank you again so much for attending the We Can Peer Learning Network Workforce Solutions Roundtable.